power.
A derecho is, in layman's terms, a very high-end, long duration, both in time and space, straight line windstorm.
June 29th, 2012. A cluster of thunderstorms that began at eastern Iowa would become the textbook definition of a derecho. Its path of destruction stretched from northern Indiana to the Atlantic Ocean. Despite the rarity of this type of storm, it made the term derecho part of our regular severe weather vocabulary. What made this particular storm so unique that it's become one of Ohio's most memorable events?
Like any weather phenomenon, we have spectrums of magnitude. Just like tornadoes, you have the weak EF0s and you have the killer violent EF4s and EF5s. Derechos, we have those on the same spectrum. The one that we moved through here on June 29th, 2012, was probably the highest end derecho, the most severe derecho that's ever moved through the Ohio Valley.
The storm covered its 700-mile journey in about 10 hours. So what exactly do we need for a derecho to form? Well, meteorologists look for several ingredients. One, a lot of moisture pushing right out of the Gulf of Mexico. That combines with evapotranspiration. A lot of vegetation has moisture. That moisture evaporates as well. Typically, as you get into the plains and in parts of Iowa where you have a lot of cornfields and soybeans, all of that collides with cool, unstable air coming in from the north. We get thunderstorms that develop over parts of Iowa typically. This is where the derecho that occurred on June 29th, 2012 began. That grew into a monster cluster of thunderstorms, producing severe winds well out ahead of that line. It continued to cross through Chicago and into Illinois and Indiana, tracking nearly 400 miles in a short amount of time. Seth Benow at the National Weather Service and his team saw this developing and began to get more information.
We watched these storms and they didn't weaken. When we saw that they hadn't weakened by 10 or 11, and knowing what our downstream environment over the Ohio Valley was, we knew we were in for it.
They immediately worked to obtain more information.
So when we launched a special weather balloon on June 29th at 1 p.m., we measured over 6,000 joules of surface-based instability. To put that in perspective, a typical strong environment is maybe 2,000, 2,500 joules.
It was the perfect and rare combination of heat, moisture, wind shear, and instability that combined to form a beast.
We knew, okay, this is going to be not your average event, and I think that was kind of, it's go time, and that's when we had to ramp up messaging and make sure our warnings matched the threat.
But with severe weather warnings so common, the National Weather Service worried this one just would be white noise.
We had to get the verbiage and the wording in our warnings to match what was going to happen, because folks hear severe thunderstorm warning and it's going to be, well, we've had these a million times before. Not on that day.
A severe thunderstorm warning issued with 90-mile-per-hour winds has the same weight as a warning for a 60-mile-an-hour wind gust. In reality, it's much more dangerous.
People don't understand the magnitude of damage that comes with every 10-mile-an-hour increment with severe thunderstorm wind damage. 60 will knock down trees. 70 will start to cause minor structural damage. When you're into the 80s, if you're not in a reinforced structure, think of 80-mile-an-hour winds as a weak tornado. And then as you get like in the higher end derecho environments, 90 to 100 miles per hour, you need to treat that like a tornado. That's an EF1 tornado. You need to be basement or ground floor away from windows.
As the storm blew through Marion, you could see the glass bowing from the 80-mile-per-hour winds at this car dealership. Just outside of town, this man captured the storm's strength on video. Notice the car parked next to the trailer, and then just a few moments later, you couldn't see the car. The trailer had moved. But perhaps nothing shows the force of this storm like the damage done to the Logan County Courthouse in Bell Fountain.
When the winds hit it, it sort of lifted the tower up. They had put in some paneling and other things that they thought would help keep it weatherproof and keep the animals out. And that actually created more of a parachute effect. It lifted it, particularly here on the west side. Bricks fell in to the building, and it nearly toppled into the rest of the courthouse. And then when it came back down, it was shifted a little bit.
Straight line winds moved 60 tons of wood and steel. Reconstruction of the tower took about 4 years, and full restoration of the courthouse was completed in late 2018.
They said it was engineered to handle winds at higher than 140 mile an hour now.
The June 29th derecho impacted 10 states and Washington, D.C. 4 million customers were left without power in the days and weeks following. 13 deaths were linked to the violent winds in the 10 affected states. An ensuing heat wave, coupled with the lack of electricity in those areas, accounted for another 34 heat-related casualties. In terms of costs, Ohio was first in insurance claims with 145,000 cases and losses estimated near $845 million. 38 Ohio counties qualified for federal, state, and local disaster assistance. Franklin County alone received nearly $3 million. When it comes to severe weather, no matter where you live, knowledge is power.
You're not going to be able to make a decision unless you have information. Most people will make the right decision if they have the information, but if you don't get the information, you're not going to make any decisions at all.
For Spectrum News 1, I'm Chief Meteorologist Eric Elwell.